as a guest interviewer for Bell to Bell's Women of the 2021 PWI 500 interview series. And today I am so excited to be speaking with the ankle breaker, the submission sniper, the daddy of the district, the one and only Jordan Blade. Jordan, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm super impressed that you got all of those nicknames. So thank you.
I feel like I might have even missed some. So I mean, you have a lot of names, a lot of accolades, and we're gonna try and cover even a tenth of it today. So first and foremost, I have to congratulate you again on being one of the women of the 2021 PWI 500 for this year. So obviously, PWI listed a few of your accomplishments, including strong showings at Beyond Wrestling, Paradigm Pro Wrestling, and Pro Wrestling Magic, where you held the women's championship. You also won the PPW Super Middleweight Grand Prix. And that is just, like we said, kind of scratching the surface of your accomplishments from the past year. So what are some of the experiences from this year that you feel like have really elevated you as a wrestler?
Oh my goodness. I think one of the first ones for me that comes to mind is my match at Global Syndicate Wrestling with Deonna Purrazzo. That was other than being able to wrestle Trisha Dora last December, which was kind of like the start of kind of like my super busy past, what are we in September? So like 10 months, wrestling Trish, but like wrestling Deonna Purrazzo, like here's someone who's been on TV, obviously currently on TV. What am I saying? Been on TV, but currently on TV, currently, just taking the Impact Knockouts division by storm. And not only Knockout of the Year, but Wrestler of the Year in Impact. So I was over the moon when I found out I was going to be wrestling her. She's as far as current wrestlers that are obviously wrestling today, she's one of the people that I look up to. Obviously, the greatest women's technical wrestler in the world. So clearly, there's some parallels there. So I was like, what? I mean, that could not be a better matchup, I know, for me. So that was one of the first ones.
Absolutely. Has there been for you a particular, I mean, as you said, a particular match, but maybe even kind of a moment outside of a match that's really stood out to you over the past year?
Oh yeah. So having the Beyond Wrestling crowd at Dawn Work for Yuta sing Misery Business back to Ela and I as you can tell, I'm like over the moon, like gushing right now about it. That was easily probably like top 3 moments for me in my career so far. And I've been wrestling on the indies for I just passed 4 years in July. So that was a moment. That was a moment, and wrestling is definitely about moments. As far as opponents, I think that have defined my career over the past, again, almost a year. Janai Kai is at the top of that list. The amount of time we've wrestled each other 6 times now. 5 times. We were gonna wrestle. The 6th time was gonna be a couple weekends ago, but yeah, so 5 times. So I can't say enough good things about her. I mean, everyone who's watching this, I'm sure already knows about her, the kick demon, the baddest black belt. And I look up to her so much, and we just have so much in common, obviously, with having a shooter background. So whenever we get in the ring, it's almost like it's a day off, kind of, because we like to hit each other hard. And every time I come home and I have bruises, and I'm not mad about it. I'm like, oh yeah, Janai. I know it's Janai.
Okay. Oh, right. Another day at the office.
Exactly.
Well, considering all the things that have just happened within the past year, I love to learn a little bit more about your journey into the world of pro wrestling. So, I'm someone that likes to do my research, and I did see on social media you recently won your first gold medal in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at your first tournament as a blue belt. And I know you and I had even spoken in the past about some of your really impressive achievements in powerlifting. I'm curious, how did your history as an athlete tie into pro wrestling? Did one kind of fuel the other?
Yes and no. So I've been an athlete since I was 6 years old. I played basketball for 10 years. I dabbled, I'll say, in field hockey, softball. I did those for like 1 year, and I was like, not for me. And then I played ultimate frisbee for 7 years. So I will say that ultimate frisbee definitely played a lot, or played a huge role rather in Jordan Blade because um, my last I wanted to. I'm a very like I guess like deep person. Hashtag Scorpio. I'm a
Ugh,
very
textbook
deep.
Scorpio.
Yes, textbook. So I wanted to take something that meant something to me from kind of it was kind of like my transition out of Ultimate into pro wrestling. So Jordan is actually my mother's maiden name, so that's where Jordan comes from. And blade is a term used in Ultimate Frisbee that obviously, if you can imagine a frisbee, obviously when you throw it, it's going to be flat. Well, a blade happens when you throw the frisbee and it turns on its side. And so it comes down very hard and fast. And just like when it hits the ground, obviously it's hitting the ground at a high velocity and it's very forceful. So that's where blade comes from. So I wanted to take something from Ultimate and apply it kind of as I transition into professional wrestling.
I love that. I don't think I had ever heard that story
I
behind
don't
the
think I told the story before, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, and now as far as wrestling, was that something that you know, watched growing up? Was this something that kind of caught your interest later in life?
I would say about like midway. So a lot of people are like, yeah, like I watched wrestling when I was 6 or 3 or in the womb or I I started watching when I was 12. So like
Okay.
not like super early like most people, but not like super late like some of my friends too. So like kind of like in the middle at the point where you're in middle school and people are like, oh, it's fake, right? Blah blah blah. And so here's me like, it's not fake. And I was just crushed. But
Ugh.
yeah, so I started watching when I was 12, and it just kind of at the age where I guess like some kids probably they kind of like phase out of it. They're like, when you meet people now, they're like, oh, I used to watch wrestling when I was 8 or whatever with my brother. That's when I started to get into wrestling when I was 12, so kind of later than most people.
Oh, but here you are, part of this illustrious list, created an incredible career, and I again, I just feel like we're barely getting into it. All the things that are yet to come for you. So thinking about the fact that this achievement as being part of the PWI 500 can lead 12-year-olds and kids that are seeing you feeling like they can go out and pursue their dreams. So who would you say are some of the biggest influences for you on your pro wrestling journey?
Well, obviously, one as cliche as it sounds, my family. When I got into pro wrestling, or when I started training, rather, I was single and really just had to worry about myself. And so the week after my debut in the Indies, I met my now wife. And so yeah, I know July was like an awesome year for me, or awesome month for me.
Heck yeah.
And 17, yeah. And so I met my wife, and then obviously things progressed, and she obviously has a son, so that became our son. So really quickly it became a thing of, okay, I'm doing this a for me, obviously, because I've wanted to do this since I was 12, and this is really all I've wanted to do. Other things have popped up, but like my heart always just went back to wrestling. So now not only am I doing this for me, I'm doing this for them for a plethora of reasons. Obviously, I don't want them to want for anything. I want both of them to follow whatever dreams that they have and not have, monetary issues be the reason that they can't do whatever it is they want to do with their lives. So that's one. And then two, I see my son watching me, and it's they're watching when you don't think they are. So just trying to be a good example for him. As far as and my mom, like I'm a single child, or single child, not a single mom, single, an only child. It's been a long day at
Same.
work.
I get you. I get you. And same here. So I understand a lot of the only child mentality. Please continue.
Yeah, so I'm an only child, and so it's just me, for my mom, and I have a stepdad and everything, but everything she gave to me, I want to be able to give back to her. I ran that woman ragged when I was a kid. Mom, we got to go to this practice and this practice and this one is all the way on the other side of town. And I ran that woman ragged, and she did not complain one time. Um, I mean, fortunately for me, I'm surrounded by a ton of great people, people who are obviously inspirations to me as well. My mother is probably the best person that I know in my life, and hopefully one day I'll be as nice as she is. Today is not that day. People think I'm nice. I'm mean. I mean, that's a Scorpio coming out. I'm mean.
A little fiery, a little
Little
fire.
fiery, yeah. But yeah, I want to do this for them as well. And it's interesting to go from obviously being selfish because again, being single or whatever, and me just doing my own thing to, hey, now I have this family that also depends on me. And my success, I have to obviously heavily depend on my success in order to provide for them.
And even just the mechanics and the logistics of different schedules and school, and if your son has activities. So I can imagine just what goes into, and it makes sense that maybe, you're not sunshine and butterflies all the time. It's, I'm sure, a little stressful sometimes. I get it.
Yeah, if we got them in here now, they'd be like, okay, do you have time? Do you want to sit down? Do you want to make a list of all the times that Jordan has not been on Sunshine and Rainbows?
We won't call him in for that just yet. We won't we won't get the jury in on this. Well, considering that the pro wrestling world itself is just such an ever evolving kind of cross section of humanity, and as a Black wrestler, as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, what does representation in pro wrestling mean to you?
It's everything. And I know Suge has been doing great. I don't know if you've been able to hop in on these spaces.
Yeah.
Um, Suge D, shout out to him if he's watching this. Um, he's been doing great things with these Twitter spaces. And just yesterday we had a conversation about representation, specifically, Black representation in wrestling. It means everything because when people name, oh, hey, this person, I looked up to this person, to be a wrestler, or even, not to be a wrestler. I look up to this person because they inspire me to do my best, and whether that best is in wrestling or, other things. We want people of color to be in that conversation. And I was thinking about this yesterday, and I know for me, I also wanted, or want a masculine presenting female as someone for someone else to look up to as well, because um, that is something that is missing in wrestling as well. I won't say missing 100%, but it's definitely on the low end of the list. And I definitely, when I was a kid, when I was 12, when I got into this, I was just looking at people like Lita and Team Extreme and, John Cena. And I was like, oh my goodness, like they're so great. And Rey Mysterio. So, but obviously, they don't look like me. And so I'm realizing this now, obviously, as I get older, as I get deeper into wrestling, that this representation is probably one of the most important things in wrestling that we can have.
Yeah, I feel like it's so important to be able to see and identify with people doing what you love to do, whether you aspire to be a wrestler or you're a fan. I think at any level, it's so crucial to be able to find that person that you can identify with. So I 100%. And I know that this has been obviously a topic that's been discussed a lot very recently too, as you were talking about with Suge with the spaces. As far as kind of your weighing in on it, what do you feel like the pro wrestling landscape is doing right now, and where do you feel like it still really has room to grow?
So back when I maybe was in college or so, I would tell, or even in high school, honestly, I would tell people that wrestling is 50 years behind. It's racist, it's sexist, it's homophobic, it's D, all of the above. And we still have a way to go. Just because what I love about independent pro wrestling is that it seems as though they are the ones ahead of the curve, having these conversations and putting these minorities in prominent positions to be leaders. And then it seems as though the bigger companies may kind of take notice and then kind of follow suit after that. Which, you know, we can have a whole different conversation about that. Um, we definitely obviously still have a long way to go with um, sorry, POC representation in wrestling, queer representation in wrestling. Billy Dixon and Lolo are doing the Lord's work as far as, you know, Paris is bumping, Butch versus Gore, you know, all this stuff. Again, shout out to Billy and Lolo. We love you. I love you. Y'all know that. With this representation, but then you also have companies like OWA out in Ohio and Paradigm Pro Wrestling. Shout out to Gary. He's been one of my biggest supporters, and it's crazy. I just took a chance on myself and I was like, hey, I want to come for a tryout. And back in December, and that's when I first met Janai Kai when we had our match against each other. So these promotions are, a lot of them, they're doing the legwork, they're listening to us, which is really, that's step one. That's all we want, is someone to listen to us. You know, and taking LGBTQ talent seriously. Obviously, you guys know that I was at Effie's Big Gay Brunch this past Sunday. Like, I saw people standing, you know, the seats were filled, standing room only crowd. It's amazing. It's amazing what Effie has been able to bring together and what Effie has been able to build. So obviously we have that. Again, for me, I'm like, hell yeah, we're getting more Black representation in wrestling. Hell yeah, we're getting more queer representation in wrestling. I think, and this may be a super, super minority, but again, for me, I definitely want to see more, again, mask presenting females, you know, and vice versa, in wrestling, because I feel like, again, sometimes it seems like it's party of one. Sometimes it's just me. And you know, I try not to let it get to me. It doesn't, sometimes it doesn't bother me, but sometimes it's hard not to let it. And obviously I want everyone to be themselves, and I'm only ever gonna be myself. You're not gonna catch me in a dress or a pair of heels for nobody. Like, if I'm going to a tryout or whatever, I'm showing up in a suit. Sorry about it. You're gonna have to deal with it.
And I think the suit looks fantastic.
Thank you.
So I think you're doing great. But also I think that it's so critically important that you are staying 100% authentic with yourself, because people can see right through that. So why bother trying to be anything that you're not? You are you, and you are fantastic. So as we said, though, the work never really stops when it comes to making and keeping wrestling a safe and inclusive and diverse space. And I feel like this recognition for you with PWI is just one of many more accolades and opportunities that's going to come your way. But of course, but of course, you know, life is all about balance. So what do you like to do to unwind outside of wrestling?
Dang, do I
You have
unwind?
any free time?
I know. Do I have any free time? So yesterday, actually, I had some free time. I went to the gym at like 5 a.m. with one of my friends, and then I went to work. But I had my afternoon all to myself. Excuse me. And I literally I was like, "What's today? It's friggin' Wednesday, AEW." So literally, I got some, I don't know if y'all have it here there, but I ordered some Texas Roadhouse, which has some of the best rolls. And I had a little pre-made margarita, and I sat down and I watched AEW. And I know that it definitely still has something to do with wrestling, but like I got off work at 3:30 and I was like, I don't know what to do with my life right now. Like, I am so not used to this free time. But it was good to just sit down and unwind. And you know, if you know, my wife and I are both home, you know, with our son or whatever, we bought a ton of board games last year during COVID. So we'll sit down with him and we'll play like a couple of board games for a couple hours, and that's like definitely family time that I definitely cherish, because we're always you hear my schedule, we're always ripping and running. We're always going to work. We're always going to the gym, jujitsu, whatever. I have, have to wrestle, yeah, school. Um, so obviously it's definitely nice to unwind. So yeah, I would say, yeah, to unwind, I'd go to jujitsu and most of like they're winding me up, but it's really tough for me to relax. It's hard for me because I get very anxious because I'm like,
Mhm.
someone else is out there working harder than me, but I have to, and we have to try to get rid of that mentality in society where, oh yeah, I only slept for 3 hours and then let's get after blah blah blah. Like getting after it's great, but recovery is just as important. And so we have to de what's the word? De-glorify, if that's a word, this notion that we need to go 100% of the time. And I know if my wife is listening to me right now, she would be like, you need to take your own advice.
Exactly. Easier said than done a lot of the time, but yes,
definitely easier said than done. Yes.
I totally agree, though. We do kind of glorify overworking. And yeah, I think the idea of being able to decompress from time to time is obviously very, very important. And I hope that you can take some of your own advice very, sooner rather than later. But I know, right? But now, you've spoken about, of course, the importance of family. And, when it comes to thinking about, future generations, thinking about your son, what kind of legacy do you hope to create as Jordan Blade in the world of pro wrestling?
I want people to remember that Jordan was authentically herself and she demanded what she deserved. You saw me bully Effie on Twitter.
Mhm.
Saw me yell at him. I don't condone yelling, maybe.
Being assertive.
But yes, assertive. That's great. Yes, I love that. But yeah, that she was unapologetically herself.
I love that. So now, of course, we've talked about what this past year has held for you, this incredible accomplishment that we're celebrating. What is next for you?
Man. Oh, so I'm hoping one of my goals is so obviously I was on PWI 500, which is crazy. My next goal is to be on PWI Women's 150
Mm,
and be on the PWI Tag Team 50. So all three. So I think maybe the only people to do that might be the Sea Stars, maybe.
we'd have to do a little research on that,
We
but I
would
love
have to.
research. And follow
Yes.
back up on that.
Yeah. So that's one of my obviously PWI goals. I want round two with Trish Fedora. I want round two with Robert Martyr. I think Janai and I are destined to fight forever. I want to tag with her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I want to tag with her. I mean, the kick demon and the submission sniper. I mean, what? I mean,
It
that
sounds
makes sense
deadly.
to me. It sounds deadly, right? It makes sense to
Yeah.
me. And just keep getting better. I said in my promo to Deonna Purrazzo back in May, something along the lines of, she's the greatest women's technical wrestler in the world, and I'm coming after that moniker. I want to be like Deonna Purrazzo. I want to be like Davey Richards, Josh Alexander, Jonathan Gresham. Those are people I look up to, and I know that that's a tall task. I understand that. But you're not gonna get better if you don't have those small goals and those seemingly lofty goals.
Dream big. I absolutely love it. If anyone has the fire inside to make it happen, I feel like it's Jordan Blade. So with that being said, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of, as we know, your very busy schedule to chat with me, and nothing but more continued success hopefully comes your way. So for Bell to Bells, I'm Alyssa Marino. This is Jordan Blade. Be sure to follow Jordan Blade everywhere and continue following her pro wrestling journey. Thank you, my friends. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.